demonstrate the history of the Abagusi in terms of what implements they used in the household, what implements they used during farming, what kind of tools they used, what kind of ammunition they used in war.
Yes, they are here.
What kind of entertainment. I went to study in abroad, including Canada, on government sponsorship. So I was under obligation to come back to the country. At that time, we didn't have enough specialized people. Again, people may not want to come back because there's no job to come to. At that time, the jobs were waiting, and we were coming to displace some of the expatriates. So it was easier. Now, people are of different types, and there are people who, in essence, like leadership, or like to do things in a unique way. For example, I had been out of Gusii for a long time since I left my grandma, because this house has been built in the structure in which my grandma's house was done.
Wow.
People grow up to go and get married. They don't know that they don't know the difference between being a child and being an adult. They even don't know the responsibilities of marriage. They go to marriage as if it is going to be a pleasure.
But they read from books.
The books don't work because very often these books have been fashioned.
They Google online.
They have been fashioned on foreign culture, but I'm named after my grandpa because I never found him. Here we name children after dead relatives, not living ones like other places.
Yeah.
Now, there was that social harmony where the child was belonging to the community.
Yes.
That has been lost. Where any parent could discipline a child who seems to be doing something wrong and people will take it right. These days, ukibuza mtoto wa mtu, sijui you will go to court.
Unapelekwa kotini. Yes.
Getting the artifacts is difficult.
Yeah.
So normally, anywhere else, museums don't make money.
Yes.
They are supported by government.
Yes.
So if it was in another country, this I would be getting government support.
It is
but
true.
Here I cannot get, because instead when I asked them one time, they were telling me, I do a proposal, and once I've done that proposal, if there is funding, we share that funding half-half. Things are missing. People have no sense of direction.
No guidance.
The government should be able to guide in this country, how do we handle old people? And who is an old person? And now what happened? Of course, the government has made some move by having Inua Jamii program.
Hello viewers, and welcome to Nationality Network. If you have not subscribed yet to our YouTube channel, please do so that you're not going to miss these inspiring, informational, and educative episodes. Today we're in the county of Nyamira with a very special person who has served in this country and almost actually the whole of Eastern and Central Africa in many capacities. He has changed from job to job, and finally he has settled and founded the Henry Boma Resort in Nyamira, which is named after his late dad. And with us here we do have Dr. Morara at the Bomas. Mr. Morara, Dr. Morara, how are you?
Good evening, viewers.
Yes.
I want to welcome you to the Henry Boma Resort. It has a lot of history for me and a lot of sentimental value. As Madam Moria said, I trained in Kenya and in Canada for most of my studies. I worked with the government, I've worked with the NGO sector, I've worked with the private sector. Then as employee until the point I was executive director of a national institution. After that, I moved on to start consulting. I've consulted in about 14 African countries in areas of management, development and small business development. After the devolution came to this country, I moved to the home county, which is Nyamira County, to work with the county. After working with the county for a short while, I decided to open a business in town as part of promoting the development of the county. I opened a bookshop called Ladder Bookshop. It has done very well, and even now it is doing fine. But as a result of the change in policy of government about supply of books to schools, our business started to get a little thinner because government was supplying books directly to the schools. So we saw a need for diversification. That is when we thought that we should open up a business in the hospitality sector. But through my travels across the world, I had seen that culture was becoming of great interest. And while I was working as head of planning at Kenya Wildlife Service, we had seen that ecotourism and cultural tourism was becoming significant and important. And so we decided that we will start a resort, but it will be founded on a cultural basis. So we started this, then we started the annual resort with my wife. We decided to start with a cultural center as the basis of the place. And many other parts of the country, culture has been very well developed. In Gusii, in the counties of Gusii, the culture was not well developed, and we were the pioneer people in this county, actually in the whole of Gusii, to build a museum. So we started with the museum where we are seated now.
Yes.
So here we have several artifacts which demonstrate the history of the Abagusi in terms of what implements they used in the household, what implements they used during farming, what kind of tools they used, what kind of ammunition they used in war.
Yes, they are here.
What kind of entertainment instruments they had, we have them. And also, as you might be aware, the Gusii were the first people, at least this side of the world, to be able to do head surgery. And we have equipment to show what used to happen. We have a few pictures on that because we cannot have a living head at this time on that. And there are very many fasts that were being done, including metallurgy. They used to make their own hoes, their own spears, and they used to smelt the iron ore, and that was one of the things that the colonial government made sure that it stopped so that they could bring in their tools from Sheffield in England. But we have remnants of such equipment in this museum.
Wow.
Now, then we also have equipment. We have attire. You know the African attire they used to wear before. We change it to the kind of clothes we wear these days. We have that in stock.
Yeah, here, yeah.
Then in addition, we have a resource center, which is like having all the books that have been written on culture about the Gusii people, including transitional things which show changes in culture, like the status of women in that time, the status of women currently, and the challenges touching probably on one of the popular subjects, which we call FGM, but in Kisii they say they never had FGM. They protest that that was a misnomer. But that is also in our resource center. You can come and read the books for yourselves.
Wow.
So we have other aspects of this resort apart from the culture museum, apart from the cultural center. We have a bird sanctuary. It's the second part, it's the second investment we made here, because we found that our birds were becoming extinct, so we wanted to be able to show what kind of birds people used to have in those days. But we have also decided to bring in some exotic birds so that the young people can find bird keeping interesting and bird watching interesting. In addition to the sanctuary, we also have, in line with the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, we have, which also has a cultural aspect. We have added agriculture. Is one of the things that we do which is not a standard thing for museums, for resorts to do. But we do that here. We have agriculture, we have vegetable gardens, we have crop gardens, which show various types of agriculture. We actually train our young people on organic farming, and that one we may not see today because it's far a bit, but it's...
So, Andrea, I like the one you say, your mom never called you Andrew, she called you Andrea, and you like the name Andrea. So, Daktari, yes, thank you so much for the background you've given us about this facility. But, you are well traveled. Earlier on, you told me that how you went even for your master's in Canada. And even if someone was like, the current Kenyans would be wondering, how would you have gone to Canada, stand there and come back? Because today they are even disappearing. So how did you manage to go to Canada, study there, and still you become an economist and come back to Kenya?
I went to study in abroad, including Canada, on government sponsorship. So I was under obligation to come back to the country. At that time, we didn't have enough specialized people. So if you went for further studies, you were bound to want to come home, to come and build the country. Some of us were very nationalistic then. Things have changed now. People are not nationalistic as we were.
I think that's the word.
Now, this time, people are thinking about self. At that time, we were thinking about nation. And therefore, you felt obligated to come back and build your country.
Because we've seen today, even pastors, they go there just for studies and they are going to enhance their education and come back. Then go, we've seen choirs, even here from Kisii, I've heard stories. Then go there in the name of the church. They disappear, they don't come back. So that's the patriotism.
It is the nature also of the way the country has been and the kind of leadership we have in the country. Maybe that level of nationalism that was being dreamed for when we were becoming independent has disappeared. It has been shown that leaders take power, they promise to take care of the nation, but oftentimes they don't take care of themselves. So that culture of looking into me, doing things for me, has now changed the perspective, so people go, and they don't want to come back. The other thing is, when we came back from abroad, when those days, you were guaranteed a job. These days, there is no job guarantee. Actually, we are exporting labor because we can't have jobs locally. So there is another reason why, again, people may not want to come back because there is no job to come to. At that time, the jobs were waiting, and we were coming to displace some of the expatriates. So it was easier to come back.
Something else I've also realized as you were talking is about the number of times you changed jobs. I'm like, 1 year I was a teacher, the next one I was an economist, the next one I was in the Ministry of Planning, and all this. So if it were today, you leave your job, you wouldn't even get another one. So why do you think that?
No, the change job was probably trying to find myself. I had dreams, I had ideas, there are things I wanted to do. You know, when you are doing a job, you are going to do it according to somebody's requirements.
Yeah.
And
you had your own expectations.
Yeah, so expectations were not always met. And in government, those days, there wasn't quite fair. It was not as fair as it would seem to be, because sometimes you would be coming from a minority tribe like I used to come from, and you would find that most lucrative positions were reserved for certain people whom you thought that you were even more qualified than. So you feel like you don't belong. So I moved out to find greener pastures.
Okay. Daktari, unlike others, and you are retired now, I would say, by Kenyan standard, by the laws of 60 years and above, if I'm not wrong, you are retired. But you're doing the things that you like. Are you retired? Like
now, I left government when I was 40, actually 39. That's when I left government. I went to different employment. I left being employed at the age of 45. So from the time I was 45 years, I've always worked either as a consultant or doing my own business. So I believe in my independence, and that's why I didn't want to be employed for that long.
And I think that's why you have fitted in so well. After whatever retirement age you did, still you are able to do your own things. If you look at that camera today, there's someone who has maybe has ideas like you did have, and eventually you're doing what you like. What you do, tell them about changing of a job, because some people, it is a risk. Some people are so afraid of change. What you do, tell such people.
Yeah, you see now, for some people, it is advisable that they keep their jobs because we are all made different. Now, if you are enterprising and if you are curious and you are the kind of person who would want change or who can manage change, then perhaps it is much easier to change jobs. Some people have been trained for a specific skill and they have no other skills, so they might as well be okay to keep those jobs. Now, you know, people are of different types, and there are people who, in essence, like leadership or like to do things in a unique way. For example, I had been out of Gusii for a long time since I left my grandma, because this house has been built in the structure in which my grandma's house was done.
Wow.
And by the time I came back, she was no more. And I missed many of the things that used to happen in those days, the care that was in the family, the way we had to move from house to house and be given food without any reservation, even be taken care of. Even sometimes if you are a small boy who has left your nose running, someone will clean your nose for you. Those things don't happen now. I went to one of the most inspiring places I went to was Japan. Japan is a very advanced technological society, but they have retained their culture from the very end in the Meiji era or before that. And it is wonderful to see people who do their own thing, their way. They can copy the technology, they can copy the science, but they remain themselves. Very many times for us in Africa, we have copied other people's cultures, and we don't know who we are, we don't know how to present ourselves, and we are confused. There is, even when people want to come and see how we live, we don't even know. We were married to believe that ours was primitive, we have to run away from them. But we can all improve our culture with technology. We should distinguish. Science and technology is always the same. It always makes people progress. But by becoming scientifically superior, it doesn't mean you leave your culture. Because culture is an enrichment, it makes people be together, and sometimes when you lose your value systems, then you don't know how to define yourself. You can see a lot of problems in the society now. Marriages don't last. People are very unsettled. People cannot decide whether they are men or women. You know, this is a way of when you lose your culture and then you don't do things well. It is important in traditional society. We were very clear that this is a man, this is a woman, this is a mzee, this is a young man, and there were ways in which these people related. But these days, there are no standards. People are confused. You don't know what to do.
Could it be the reason why today we are struggling in even getting our older person being taken care of? Like, you see, our older persons are neglected. And like where you are in Canada and the other places we have visited, as you said, being in the technology world or whatever, or scientific world, does not mean you change your culture. I think our not knowing who we are, do you think it would have contributed to these cultural values until we neglect our older persons?
I think so. It has done greatly. For example, as I said, I mentioned my grandma. Unfortunately, I did not see my grandpas on either side, but I'm named after my grandpa because I never found him. Here we name children after dead relatives, not living ones like other places.
Yeah.
Now, there was that social harmony where the child was belonging to the community.
Yes.
That has been lost. Where any parent could discipline a child who seems to be doing something wrong and people will take it right. These days, ukivuza mtoto wa mtu, sijui you will go to court. So now those values that we had, which made the people stay together, have been lost because we were supposed to copy better values from elsewhere. But those values fitted those people. In any case, they have also caused turmoil in those societies. If we have a basis, for example, it was very clear in our society through the rites of passage in transition, when a girl moves from being a girl to a woman, it was clearly spelled what needs to be done. She was told how to behave. When the boys changed into men through circumcision and initiation, they understood what their role was in society, how they were supposed to treat the ladies, how they were supposed to treat the young girls, how they were supposed to treat the old people. And in our society, the grandchildren almost always lived with the grandparents. This was very helpful. It gave the old parents company. It also gave the old parents someone to send, so that the old people, the grandparents, didn't have to suffer. And because the children were always staying with them, their health condition was known, so that the, people would be informed and take care of them. But these days, the parents move away to other cities, to other countries with their children, and the old people are left alone. So there is no one else to be able to take them. And what is even worse, when we talk of old people, very often the children take away their mothers and leave the fathers alone. So you find old men who are there, they don't know how to cook for themselves, because during those days men never cooked, so they don't know how to cook. And the mother, the wife has gone, the children are keeping the mother, taking good care of her, they are not taking care of the fathers. So these old people very often die early because it is miserable. He has to wake up, maybe make food for himself, which he doesn't know how to make well, go to do milking, and he may not have enough strength to do so. And sometimes in some rural places, fetching water is such a challenge. So life for these old people is very hard, especially the men. I must say that it is harder for the men than the women, because very many the women have opportunities to have grandchildren stay with them, or they are called upon to want to stay with their children elsewhere.
Do you think you have traveled wide and you're educated and you've been schooled so much? Do you think there's a way we can be educated, be learned, and still keep our culture intact?
Yes, of course, when we talk about our culture, not everything that we used to do might be relevant now. But very many of the values that we practiced are still relevant. Some of the activities,
especially the family values.
Especially the family values.
Yes.
And especially the transition of initiation, circumcision is very important, because these days people grow up to go and get married. They don't know that they don't know the difference between being a child and being an adult. They even don't know the responsibilities of marriage. They go to marriage as if it is going to be a pleasure.
But they read from books.
The books don't work, because very often these books have been fashioned.
They Google online.
They have been fashioned on foreign culture. They have not been fashioned on our culture. And very often they have also been fashioned on foreign religion. So these things don't fit very well. There is a way in which they don't fit. That's why we need to be able to have a process where we make these things fit, where we say, for example, a Kenyan of 1960 is not going to live the same life like the one like the of
2024
or 2024. Yeah. So these transitions have got to be studied, so that there be kind of areas where these children are helped to cope from childhood to adulthood, from single life to married life, so that people know what it takes, for example, to be married. People sometimes just see the young man can see a beautiful girl and say that I just want to leave that one because she's beautiful. But he forgets there are responsibilities that go with that, living with that.
And the beauty finishes anyway.
So now,
do you think our government also has a role to play to improve on what we are missing, these values, both the national and the county government? Like I told you, except for the constitution, which is stipulates that in Active 57 that it is the responsibility of the government and the family to give reasonable care to the older persons. And now, right now in Kenya, we do not have any existing act of parliament, any policy besides that has anything to do with the older people. Do you think our government has a role to play as we finalize?
The government has a big role, a central role to play, because having the right policies and the right regulations will help the way we take care of our people. But if there is a devoid, things are missing, people have no sense of direction.
No guidance.
The government should be able to guide, in this country, how do we handle old people? And who is an old person? And now what happened? Of course, the government has made some move by having Inua Jamii program to take care of what we call vulnerable people.
Yeah, vulnerable, not
but
even older, yes.
Not really even old, but it is not even done well. First of all, it has been done in a manner that is partially corrupt, so that some people will qualify to get this money, and they are not old enough. Others who qualify because of age, they are not even getting. So that becomes an issue because there are some people who also get this money when they don't need to get, like, for example, the money for the many vulnerable people. They are left, and those who are more vulnerable, those are less vulnerable, are the ones who are getting. So we need this policy. For example, the idea of a cultural center. I started this without government intervention, but I realized that the government, there is in the county, there is a culture, a department of culture, gender, and all those things. So I went there to get some assistance. I could not get any. So why do they have a department of culture if it has no role to play with the actual things on the ground?
Yeah.
This cultural center doesn't make a lot of profit because it talks about history things,
Yeah.
and people pay a small money just to see them.
Yeah.
Even getting the artifacts is difficult.
Yeah.
So normally anywhere else, museums don't make money.
Yes.
They are supported by government.
Yes.
So if it was in another country,
Yeah.
this I would be getting government support.
It is
but
true.
here I cannot get, because instead when I asked them one time, they were telling me, I do a proposal, and once I've done that proposal, if there is funding, we share that funding half-half. If we share the funding half-half, then how can I do what I want to do? So I never took that.
And of course, they are getting their salaries
They are
out
getting
there.
their salaries.
They created a whole department. Which
So
has
this
people
department, which is being paid salaries every year, what do they have to show they have done for culture, apart from a few parades that they do on the ground? What is it that they are doing if they cannot support institutions that propagate and preserve our culture? Then how they obviously in Nyamira County there are 2 museums, and these museums are both been started by individuals. I started this one first. Then when my friend came and saw this, he liked it. He saw some elements which I didn't have, which he wanted to incorporate, like wild animals. So I said, you go ahead and start yours.
Wow.
I'll give you. So we have those 2, but they have been started by personal initiative and without government support.
So government, you have a role to play. Government, we need policies, and policies that can guide Kenyans, can guide those people who are motivated, who are self-motivated and do these things. So yes, I think
that is okay. Nataka kumaliza nikisisitiza.
Yeah.
Mkosa mila ni mtumwa.
Yes.
We cannot be respected as Africans or as Kenyans.
Yes.
If we don't have a culture.
Yes.
I applaud a lot the Maasai people for resisting too much change.
Yes.
We used to think they are backward, but these days, as far as we are concerned, they are ahead of us in culture.
Wow.
And we need to emulate such kind of people. And the whole of this country, every people should bring their culture up. At some point, there will be a coalition of the melting pot of these cultures, so that finally we shall have what we call a Kenyan culture. Right now there are those differences from one tribe to another, but as we go and we eat the same food, the same type of things, we look more the same, we intermarry, then we become one nation and we shall share these cultures.
Wow.
That's why we need a process where we talk about the Kenyan culture and see what are we preserving,
Yeah.
what are we promoting,
Yeah.
what are we selling, so that we can now say this is going to be the Kenyan culture.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andrea Morara, here in Manga at Henry Boma Resort, the owner, the proprietor, the one who established without so addedly by himself. And now we're asking the government, you have all these departments, please come out and give Kenyans who have initiatives, you give them support, give them guidance. So with that, we'll be back. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Just said you applaud the Maasai community. Currently, I would say I've also traveled quite a lot, studying and reading about these cultures. And I applaud the Kisi community for what they are doing right now. It's better late than never. At least you are coming back, and you have stipulated vizuri, like you have 2 cultural centers here, and I've seen students coming there to learn, and they are all in Nyamira. Nyamira County, Kisii government, you have a role. Support them. To the Kisii, to the Nyamira County, the guys who have started this cultural center for our students to be educated there, even for other Kenyans like myself, coming all the way and learning things that I never knew. Unfortunately, we never learn history. We never learn our own history. We've been busy cramming history from...
We are busy being told when Livingstone passed through here, not when the Merus or the Kisiis did
Exactly.
this. So,
actually, like I was telling you, if I get Ramsey from Kisii to tell me our history, we hear Kisiis and Merus are cousins. Where did we separate? Why don't we know that history? We know about the tallest mountain in the world. We know about the Ruwenzoris. We know about the Mount Everest. Why don't I know about these hills in Manga, how they were established and what goes in? So we have a role in government. Please take action. And if you have not subscribed yet, please keep on moving, keep on subscribing. Thank you so much. And we are getting there. Thank you, Kisii and Nyamira County, for your initiative of catching up with our Maasai brothers. Thanks.
Kwaheri. Come and see what we have for you on the ground. Just know that being without a basis of where you come from, you would not know where you are supposed to go.
Dr. Andrea, if one would want maybe to visit this Heritage Center, how would they reach you out? Do you have like a website? Do you have something? Can you let the viewers know?
We have a website. We also have a WhatsApp wall, which is very popular. It has about 900 people.
Wow.
And we have a website. We also are on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. And lately we are on Instagram. So it's possible to find us. Our numbers, our contacts are in those areas. In any case, if you are in Nyamira town, all the borders know where this resort is. So once you arrive there, or the drivers will bring you, or the borders will tell you how to come. You don't even need to ask. So long as you mention Henry.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you very much. And also for honoring your dad, Henry, because I am for Waze. And to hear these honors, that's in the West you find streets honoring people, and you decided to honor your father, your late father. Thank you so much.